Hello, Infinity. I'm back, you're back, and my cousin argued with me for 3 hours about whether or not mermaids could exist. So today is going to be a bit of a digital sketchbook tour through my completed mermaid challenge that I completed out of spite. For those of you who don't know, Mermay is a daily art prompt challenge for the month of May, similar to Huevember or Inktober, but the prompt list and themes revolve around mermaids. Mermaid, in May, Mermay. There is an official prompt list created by professional artists, which you can find on the Mermay Instagram account, but in honor of my cousin, I made my own prompt list. So this year, all of my impossible and illogical mermaids will be based off of real aquatic life. Without further ado, let's draw some merfolk. This is one of many fish that I liked the name of, but they're kind of boring looking from a design standpoint. Ironically, because this is the first day of the challenge, I was full of hope and motivation, so this ended up being the most polished of my pieces. I very quickly learned I had to speed up my workflow or add way less details if I wanted to complete my challenge in time. As for his actual design, I took more inspiration from the name rather than the fish itself, though the sharp quill-like spines at the end of the fish's fins were represented in his very spiky hair. I was going for a punk rocker vibe. The blacks, grays, and browns of the natural fish scales also played well with the grungier, darker aesthetic of the genre. While trying to add a bit more flair to the piece, I struggled for a very long time to find the perfect brush to add bubbles coming out of his mouth. In hindsight, they look a little too silly for the scene, but if mermaids produced gaseous carbon monoxide when they breathed out, then that death scream needed its own jet stream. Like the fish before it, I really focused on the sheep portion in the California sheep head. I thought it would be fun to have my mermaid spin seaweed into her own yarn. You can tell that I was already starting to slow down with my process here, since I kept all of the shading to a simple cell version and didn't go for my much more involved rendering style. Of course, I still had to add a background with her using the lasso fill tool, which added some really nice little seaweed leaves. I love the vibrancy of this diva and was inspired by the subtle gradient in the fish's scales. I had to make sure that this mermaid's pose put her tail front and center. I mean, it is such a beautiful, vibrant orange color. I also wanted to not so subtly pay homage to the subtle gradient in the fish's scales by doing the red to yellow gradient in her hair, since it's underwater and flowing hair is one of my favorite things to draw. As for the brush that I used on the actual scales, this brush was actually created by a fellow content creator on YouTube by the name of Blue Biscuits. They put it up for free on their Ko-fi shop, so if you're interested, try checking them out and maybe leaving a tip for them as well. It's a really nice brush and it works surprisingly well to make pretty decent fish scales. Play off of the ethereal image I had in my head, I decided to go for a lineless style with this piece. Well, as close to a lineless style as I could get. I'm not exactly the best when it comes to this technique, unfortunately. So I feel like a lot of my general shapes ended up getting lost. It was really hard to figure out what needed to be shaded, since you have to think in specifically shading and shapes and less about line work. And I think the hardest part for me was getting all of my edges smooth. Each block of color I use the lasso tool to fill in, but when I normally do my artwork, my flat colors are underneath my line art layer, so the messy edges of my fill tool skills are usually hidden up by smooth, clean line art. Either way, really pretty fish. My first and obvious thought for this fish would have been to draw my mermaid with a very distinct and pronounced nose, but I was more focused on the long spine aspect. So hear me out. I wanted a pose where the main focus would be a large spiny protrusion coming from her chest, almost as if the spine had stabbed through. But I didn't want to do anything gory, so I landed on an opera singer. Operas and theaters often having very dramatized scenes, and the pose references I found worked perfectly. It was all coming together, at least in my head. Honestly, I actually really liked how this piece turned out with all of the smooth, soft colors and gentle shading techniques. I even went in for the background to add to the drama of the scene, so I kind of based the general shape off of some really cool coral that I found. Ah yes, another fish with a really cool name, but a rather basic form. The most distinctive feature, of course, being the eyes. Thus, the classic anime pop star pose immediately popped in my head, and I just kinda went with it. It just works so well to use the hands to frame the face and draw attention to the eyes. But here is the pitfall of doing a monthly challenge. Yes, monthly challenges can be helpful in a lot of ways. They help give you inspiration when you're in an art rut, and they're an excellent way to stay accountable when it comes to getting extra practice in. But as a content creator, I had given myself an incredibly short deadline for when I needed each piece to be done by. So my opal eye is more of a dead eye. I wanted to play around with my technique more, but I simply ran out of time. Maybe I'll revisit some of these pieces next year. Does anyone else think mobster when they hear the word cleaner? No? Just me? Okay. I mean, the fish literally looks like it's wearing a suit. Forget about it. For this one, I wanted to keep my main color palette simple. Purely the deep navy and white with a few light blue accents to tie in the namesake. I thought it would be fun to try a different lighting effect. My mobster is having a fantasy waterproof cigarette after a job well done. The bright blue of the flame would be my focal point for the effect. When doing my line work, I would switch to the accent color for any of the lines that were going to be illuminated by the lighter. I mean, it's nothing too crazy or groundbreaking, I just never thought to try it before. I thought it gave off a pretty cool effect. Once I finished the background, I used the gradient tool in a deep purple to give a little bit more shadow over the whole piece to make the scene a little bit darker, and over all of my other layers I added a quick noise filter layer just to make the whole thing seem a little bit more grainy and grungy. Like maybe it was from some old film. The weedy sea dragon is by far one of the most interesting fish that I have on this list. It is absolutely beautiful and stunning. So I wanted to add a lot more motion to this piece to hopefully be able to add in all of the little dainty frilly fins that the weedy sea dragon is known for. And I mean, look at those stunning colors. Truly beautiful. And this is the first sea creature that's on my list that is not actually a fish. However, when I saw the picture of the giant plumose sea anemone, instantly thought about doing a wedding dress design. I mean, it's really pretty when you look at it. Unfortunately, I did not give myself enough time to really add all of the beautiful lacy details that I wanted to, but the overall shape and form, I feel like still gave off the vibe that I was going for. And my mermaid is pretty cute after all. So when I was originally typing out my prompt list for this challenge, I originally typed out black star instead of bat star, which led me down a rabbit hole of a completely different starfish, but when I was looking at it, I knew that that was incorrect. But here we are again with the bat starfish. And of course, with a name like that, I had to do a spooky vampire lady. How there's lightning underwater, I'm not quite sure. It's a fantasy setting after all. I absolutely loved my dress for her design, but I feel like out of all of my pieces, this one definitely feels a lot less like a mermaid. I mean, with the dark shading of her starfish legs, it's kind of hard to see that that's what they actually are. I also thought it would help save me some time if I went for a more concentrated color palette, mostly doing a lot of my pinks, purples, and blues, just to hopefully speed up my process. I don't have much to say about this design other than funky little guy. I made myself a funky little guy. I mean, it wouldn't be a monthly challenge without just a weird little science dude. I don't know why I thought about doing it for this version though. I think maybe it was the extra shimmer that they had on their scales. I'm not quite sure, but I had a lot of fun with this one. Fun fact, piranhas in media are not exactly portrayed correctly. In the wild, they're actually scavengers, and I actually knew someone who raised piranhas, specifically raised one piranha in a whole tank of goldfish. As long as all of the fish were fed correctly, the piranha never attacked. So keeping that in mind, I kind of went with a salvage yard kind of piranha. You know, someone who's a little gruff and a little more jaded for the world. At the end of the day, if you needed something, they'd probably have it. Something reliable, a little misunderstood, if you will. Plus, playing off of the black spot, I added a bit of a grease smudge on their face and clothing. I really liked how she turned out. She's really cute. And I wanted to make sure to add a little bit of sunburn on her arms just to make it seem like she is very hardworking, out in the sun all day. With a name like Fire Eel, I knew I had to do something a bit dramatic. That, and I wanted to find a pose that would show off that incredibly long and beautifully striped tail. Not quite sure how well I managed to do that, but it was a lot of fun to draw. I also don't exactly like how his face turned out. I don't know. I think there's something in the eyes. I feel like he's definitely a performer that has a deep dark secret and is probably going to scam quite a few people. Either way, it was a lot of fun to draw out all of the squiggles, almost meditative in a way. And those flames, I simply just lowered all of the opacity with the simple shapes. I should have gone with just one flame circle instead of two different flame circles. The effect is lost a little bit and kind of makes the image a little too busy. It took me a while to kind of figure out what I was gonna go for when it came to the design of this fish, but then I looked at the fins and they kind of remind me of really puffy animal print jackets that kind of remind me of my great-grandmother. So I don't have much else to go off of. I kind of lost my train of thought on that one. Stripes, zebra print, it all kind of blends together in the end. So I've actually tried to design a neon tetra for a previous Mermay challenge. That design did not get to see the light of day, mostly just because I wasn't exactly happy with how it turned out. I wanted to go for a very 80s theme with the colorful stripe that runs all the way down the fish's body. It kind of reminded me of the classic David Bowie image where he has the lightning bolt over his eye. So that was kind of the inspiration that I was taking, something bright and fanciful and really enjoying in a rock band. They probably play a lot of pop and probably don't book the same types of venues that the black rock fish goes to. I think I did a little bit better when it came to the posing, but didn't push myself as much as I wanted to. Also, the tablet that I draw on, the colors are actually a little bit off, so once I finished the piece, I booted it over to my phone to edit the saturation, contrast, and brightness, just to make it a little bit more neon. Really stretching my creative muscle when it comes to this one. Yep, it's a clown. It's a clown for a clownfish. This one I also thought would pop a lot more if I tried to keep my color palette as simple as possible. So obviously the clownfish is just going to be all of the basic clownfish colors, black, white, and orange. But to make it pop even more, the background was just going to be a blue. Since they're contrasting colors, it'll make my mermaid stand out a lot better against the background. I actually had a decent amount of fun designing out their jester outfit. I wanted to make sure that each color had enough space so that it was very clear what all of the shapes were. As much as I wanted to make it as busy as possible, I feel like the simplicity really helped. It made me think that I should probably design more clown characters. They're actually really fun to draw. Ah yes, the Pacific palette surgeon, also commonly known as the dory fish. For many years, I did not know what the actual name of this fish was, but now that I do, it actually gave me a really good idea for what my design should be. Thinking back to the fact that I too am an artist, and when painting with traditional media, you actually put all of your paints on a palette. So I thought it'd be fun to make her an artist as well. And for some extra fun and flair, when I did the background shapes, I actually made it so that the mermaid herself was on a clipping mask over the shapes. My art would only appear up in the vague paint splatter shapes. I thought it was a really cool effect and kind of breaks up the monotony of all of the mermaids that were starting to look very similar to each other. Day 20. Only 11 more days to go and I was so burnt out at this point. Luckily for me, I had the pajama cardinal, which actually is a really cool looking fish. Honestly, like, if I wasn't so burnt out on that day, I probably would have done something way cooler. But I wanted to take it easy, and I know not to push myself if I'm not feeling great. This poor fish ended up being a manifestation of how I was really feeling that day. If you understand the reference I was making with her outfit, how's your back feeling, fellow Zoomers? To those who are unaware, there was an old internet debate that swept through the nation on whether or not this dress was black and blue or white and gold. The actual dress was black and blue, but it did spark many video essays on color theory and the effects of lighting. To pay homage to this ancient internet meme, her tail was the beautiful gold and white stripes, but her top was the classic black and blue, which is funny because it's copper banded and the fish's stripes are a lot more orange, but I couldn't pass up the chance to make a joke. Funny thing, when you look up the Spanish hognose, it actually brings up the Spanish hognose snake, not the Spanish hognose fish. When you finally get to all the beautiful images of this fish, it has a lot of fun colors, and I really wanted something bold. I actually ended up going with a slightly different art style than my usual one. Instead of using my clean line art brush, I stuck with my more grainy sketch brush, and all of my colors were incredibly saturated to make them pop a little bit more. The background was a very deep purple. Honestly, I had way more fun with this one than some of the other ones that were way more detailed, and I really like how it turned out. Now, I did have a huge dolphin phase when I was younger, but I hate to say it, my merman is a surfer dude bro. It was too obvious. Yes, dolphins have some of the highest intelligence in the whole animal kingdom, but they use that intelligence to acquire pufferfish poison and then use the poison as a recreational psychoactive substance. Spring break degenerates. Moving on. This is just one of those fish that I just wanted to highlight how cool they really looked. I didn't have a whole lot when it came to designing my mermaid, so she ended up kind of being a little bit basic, which is ironic given the amount of times that I've absolutely dogged on all of the more basic looking fish. When it comes to something as cool as the blue striped grunt, I kind of come up flat. Either way, it was still a lot of fun just to add all of those beautiful colors and get all of those stripes. I didn't use any fancy tricks. Sometimes you just have to do the basics of layering your blue stripes over your black stripes. I don't really want to talk about this one. I mean, it's a cow nose stingray, and they're actually pretty cute for sea pancakes. I don't know what I was on that day, though. His face creeps me out, man. Like, it's sultry, but it's weird. It falls into uncanny valley for me. I don't like him. I don't like looking at him. This one's definitely my least favorite. I mean, the background was a lot of fun, just doing all of the basic shapes and then adding them to a clipping mask, but the merman himself makes me really, really, really uncomfortable. Once again, playing off the name of the fish, the black bar soldierfish is a very pretty coppery color, so I thought it'd be fun to put him in an extra shiny bit of armor. So you don't actually see much of the fish itself, and I just wanted to play around with my armor rendering technique. I think it kind of looks like I put a goldfish in copper armor, which isn't what I was going for. If I had added a bit more detail to the tail, it might have looked a little bit more like a soldierfish. This is another one where I just did the simple brick wall technique in the background, but to add a little bit more movement to the water, I took some stripes and did a couple of overlay layers. So when I first saw the spotted ratfish, I immediately thought this was going to be someone who our cleaner brass took care of. But then I actually looked at the actual fish, and they're just so stinking cute. I couldn't do that to her. So I just wanted to make someone incredibly cute and fluffy. Someone that I just wanted to give a hug and pinch the cheeks to. Like, I didn't think I was gonna get cuteness aggression over mermaids this month, but look how cute she is with the little freckles and the little dots. Oh my goodness, I love her so much. And because she looks like she falls under the bottom feeder pleco variety, I had to give her a little rock with some moss for her to enjoy. Now, I couldn't complete Mermay without doing an extra spooky deep water fish. The flashlight Fing is not exactly bottom of the ocean type of fish, but given the almost bioluminescent little shiny scales that they have on their face underneath their eyes, I thought doing something a little extra spooky would still fit the bill. I wanted to highlight the little cheek flashes as much as possible, so the entire rest of the fish is done in these deep purple navy colors. I also knew that I had to give her some big old eyes. I mean, if you look at the actual fish, those things are spherical. I don't think there's a single thought behind those eyes either. And even though my flashlight Fing is very spooky, she just wants to be your friend. I think in the end, she is a sweetheart. You know, once she lures you in. I don't really have much to say about this fish. It was kind of on the nose. It's a really pretty fish, but at this point, my creative flow was really in an all-time low, and I was so close to being done. I just kind of rushed through this one. Ah yes, the tarpon. Tarpoon? Tarpon. Either way, very, very shiny fish. So I feel like I needed to do some more metal work. This time around, instead of doing my clean line work, since I was kind of running out of time at this point, I just did all of my flats underneath my sketch layer, which did save me a lot of time and added a little bit more storybook fantasy to my drawing. And I think the tarpon and the black soldier fish might be on opposing sides in the mermaid fish war, but I think in the end, they might be enemies to lovers. That's the vibe that I'm getting here. And of course, it wouldn't be a proper mermaid without including the kings of the deep. For this one, I did a silver-tip shark. And you know what? Our dude bro dolphin needed somebody to party with, so I had to give them a friend. Somebody with frosted tips, Guy Fieri style, another bro to hang out with on the beach. Surf's up. Another easy design fish for me. I mean, I'm only 1 day away from finishing this challenge, and quite frankly, I needed another easy one. But I did make sure to add a lot more detail and extra shading to this one, just to give the beautiful fish the highlights that it deserves. And finally, my last piece of the month, the blue spine unicorn fish. 2 mythical creatures in one. Ha 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 ha. Take that, Ben. See, unicorns and mermaids exist now. Given how beautiful and ethereal unicorns are, paired with how stunning and awe-inspiring mermaids are, I knew I had to give this piece a little extra time. Even though my deadline was rapidly approaching, I wanted to make sure that I at least ended the month off with my best foot forward. And in the end, I think I did. This piece turned out beautiful. Gosh, that was a lot. I didn't even have the full 31 days to complete this challenge. Okay, so I do have to come clean. I did not draw every single day for the month of May. I'm actually on a trip visiting some family when this video goes live, so I had to double up some prompts most days. And given the fact that I procrastinated a lot, I ended up doing quite a few of them all in a single day, just so that I had enough time to edit the footage and get everything ready before I left. Please forgive me. Either way, you made it to the end of the video, so I hope you liked it. And as a reward, let me show you what started the argument between me and my cousin in the first place. Behold, this is a piece of oyster shell that I found on the beach during a family vacation. Due to its shape and magically shiny nature, I was parading it around as my very own lucky mermaid scale. Mind you, my cousin and I were both teenagers at this time. We both knew what my little scrap was, but neither of us really wanted to yield. I like to believe he was just jealous and needed his own bit of whimsy in his life. Did anybody else participate in Mermay this year? for petty or non-petty reasons. Honestly, I don't know what my favorite was. Thank you so much for joining me in my little pocket of the chaos. If you enjoyed the madness, drop a like or comment to feed the internet overlords, or perhaps a subscribe to see what might come next. I can also be found across the webiverse on Cara, Bluesky, Instagram, and Tumblr. If you seek even more chaos, consider checking out one of these videos here. Alrighty, see you after my vacation. Okay, bye.